We were sitting in a parliamentary debate, and there were people from different countries. One was from Africa, one was from America, and one was also from Afghanistan. His name was Nasrullah. And I asked him in a casual conversation, what do you want to become? He said, I want to become the president of Afghanistan. He was son of some minister of the previous regime. And when I said, how would you develop Afghanistan? He said, I don't want to. I was shocked. फिर मैंने पूछा, क्यों? कहा, I will just tell them, इसराइल के खिलाफ लड़ना है. रिलीजन तो है ही हमारे पास, वो लड़ने जाएंगे. मैंने कहा, यार उसमें तो इसराइल के पास तो बहुत टेक्नोलॉजी है, तुम कहाँ उसके लड़ पाओगे, तुम तो कुछ नहीं कर पाओगे. बोला, मेरे को क्या, लोग तो मरने के लिए ही होते हैं. And this was son, not a young man, 30 years, 40 years old. This was a 23-year-old kid who was saying this. So what Aarti ma'am has said is absolutely right. That's how elites do. And just to add on a point that these days, with respect to the narco terror, there is a predominant trend that opioid derivatives are being used. And these opioid derivatives are the things which create a person, take him to an inhibition state. And this characteristic feature of opioid drugs is being utilized by the OGWs, where terrorists have started a barter system, where they use these opioid drugs to make them their puppets who get to pick up the weapons, and in a barter trade, terrorists provide them drugs, they take the weapons. So this is something to be actually worried about and to be taken steps for. And on that note, I welcome our next speaker, Professor Kulwant Singh Saab, who will speak on denial of equal opportunities in trade manufacturing industries that's detrimental to the overall economy and the employment opportunities. I welcome you, sir. Please join us.
Good afternoon. My thanks to GOC Lieutenant General Pandey, General Dillon, and your team of Chinar Corps for inviting me here and allowing me to speak on this theme of national importance. Well, I'm an academician. I'll speak like an academic only. No extempore lectures. But I would tell you a point or two which hitherto has not been spoken about in this gathering, or people generally I have seen they refrain from referring to the hard realities, the sources of the troubles the entire state is passing through. So I'll read a bit, present you a bit of data, and then my core points. Well, as I have been asked to speak on control and denial of equal opportunities in trade and manufacturing industries to the detriment of overall economy. Well, trade and manufacturing activities are backbone of any economy, and the benefits of that economic activity percolate down to the common man only when he is made part and parcel of such economic activity. The painful continuation of the disturbed conditions in J&K has not only hampered the economic growth and resultant welfare and prosperity of the people, but has dramatically pushed back the economic growth parameters, paving the way for renegades to push forward their agenda of spreading disaffection against the government. Homogeneously unitized society may have had its advantages in the past, but in the fast-growing economies of the world, it is the heterogeneous societies that carry the nation forward on the path of peace, progress, and prosperity, as has been witnessed in the fast-paced Western economies. It was this closed-knit characteristics of the society in J&K that has proved to be a curse rather than a blessing. It's very true of this valley because it's highly homogenized society. The continued existence of terrorism in J&K has disrupted trade, commerce, agriculture, mining, tourism, and other vital economic activities, leading to a drop in GDP, increase in unemployment, inequality and poverty among the populace, besides social costs of lost educational opportunities personal injuries, loss of agricultural terrain, irreparable damage to ecology, environment, and economy, resulting in income and revenue loss. At the same time, the counter-terrorist measures adopted by the government result in some level of political instability, leading to a drop in inflow of FDI and capital in prominent economic sectors in J&K like tourism, trade and commerce. India ranks 8th on the Global Terrorism Index of 2020. The unceasing presence of terrorism has impacted political and cultural moorings, affecting adversely already economically marginalized population of J&K. It has altered the risk perception of the investors, reducing the dynamic and productive market sentiment. The uncertainty of financial returns has changed the investment infrastructural climate, which is evidenced by, for example, Haryana receiving FDI worth rupees 13,661 crore in 2021, while J&K received a paltry 1.5 crore during the same period. The unemployment rate in J&K has eased from 21.9% to 10.6% in June 21, but is still higher than the national average of 7.14. According to the India Investment Grid, J&K is set to implement 421 small and large infrastructure projects in renewable energy, roadways, hydroelectric projects, social infrastructure, logistics, transport, worth rupees 23,152 crores, and in most of the 20 districts of J&K, where the government has promoted 416, while private promoters have initiated only 5 projects. So private promoters are not coming to the state of J&K. Economic growth of J&K is projected to be 6.87%, which is considerably less than 8.49 figure of 2016-17 of J&K. The progressive loss of jobs in J&K depicting the innate macro and microeconomic structural weaknesses of our economy, like inability to absorb labor, then instability factors caused by terrorist activities. The economic loss caused by the violent mobbing, stone pelting, etc. did erode J&K's ability to diversify its economic portfolio. Certain figures are given by KCCI, Kashmir Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where they say that in the Kashmir Valley last year, 40,000 crore worth of losses were suffered by J&K, which is about 11% of the total economic output of the state, of the Union Territory, with Kashmir accounting for 50% of the J&K's economy. A substantial hit was suffered by the valley only. Apple industry is the backbone of J&K's economy, with a production of more than 2 million metric tons and a market size of 10,000 crore, accounting for 84% of the total fruit production in the country. The industry provides employment to more than 27% of the people living in J&K. The output of sectors like tourism, transport had been dented considerably as the flow of tourists to the UT dwindled sharply in the year 2020, and there was virtual standstill in these sectors because of COVID outbreak, besides shaky situation in the valley. The year 2019-20 witnessed a steep fall in the overall employment opportunities as small-scale industries, handicrafts, tourism and horticulture had been impacted badly by the prevailing situation in the valley. The political setup in J&K did not develop strong enough to create diverse opportunities to help the economy grow because of the lack of any economic plan to absorb the local economic potential for the growth and development of the economy. And many people wouldn't tell you this, why this has happened in our J&K state. It did not happen in many other states. And people shy away from talking about it because J&K has been ruled by only 2-3 families. And when the interest is personal, interest is family, my son and his son should occupy the seat of power, these things don't matter then. J&K has always lagged in progressive planning. The only state It was state, the only state which has always been dependent on grants from the central government and then grants in aid from the central government. And this attitude did not allow it to, explore alternative economic models. Then another drawback, J&K could have conveniently followed the economic model developed in the cold climate countries where they are able to perform economic activity the year round. But J&K consciously elected to follow the Darbar system, Darbar move, 6 months here, 6 months in Jammu, which was developed by erstwhile rulers who did not follow any modern day economic model but were content with the regal lifestyle. They followed to the detriment of the welfare of the common man. So our governments have been doing it. Just now someone quoted this example. Our neighboring state, Himachal Pradesh, with almost the same climatic conditions and topography, of course size is smaller, topographical conditions, has been able to produce hydroelectric power. I'm just quoting one aspect. Not only for the local consumption, but sell it to others as well. We also have so many, hydro resources. Why we have not been able to exploit those resources? Then the third important point is that why there has been lopsided focus on tourism sector only, at the cost of other sectors of economic activity. Maybe because the tourism was allowed to develop in the valley only. But in the tourism business model, which is operational in the state of in the UT of J&K, the owner is the sole beneficiary, others are not. Because the person who works for that owner stays poor for generations together. Furthermore, the concentration of all economic activity in the valley to the detriment of other regions to stifle any political challenge. There should not be any challenge to me. Challenge, it has led to the sprouting of regional aspirations. People have started talking about, Chenab Valley, and we have already seen Ladakh has become a, separate UT. It's because there was defect in the political model which we have been following. So, anyhow, I was asked to talk about the denial of opportunities by control exercised by certain sections or sectors in the present scenario in the state of J&K that other speakers have dealt with very, very elaborately. But my point is, I'm basically a man from law. Now my point is that it is this marginalized and somewhat sidelined common man who needs to be brought once again to the mainstream of economic activity in J&K and restored his basic rights to live with dignity without fear and want. The discourse needs to focus more on the protection of human rights of the systematically marginalized common man who has become more of a pawn in the hands of trans-border agents and their cohorts in the value. Then I keep on hearing, the word human right, the violation of human right. And I hardly come across a speaker who's able to explain actually what is human right. Say for example in our state and especially in Valley, people do talk about human rights. I am sure majority of them do not understand what is human right. Constitution gives you human rights, but when do you enjoy these human rights? How do you enjoy human rights? In what conditions do you enjoy human rights? For example, I pick up a gun, shoot a person, dead, police arrest me, I am taken to the court, I am sentenced, and then when the judge tells me that you ought to be hanged till death, then can I cry? You are violating my right to life. I am also a human being, I am also Indian, right to life, 21 article. Why you are depriving me of right to life? These, when we talk about human rights are sacrosanct. They are available to everyone. But their availability is subject always to not few, subject to many, many conditions. So please don't, when you do not understand what actually is the meaning of human rights, don't mislead the audience about human rights or the violation of human rights. Because those who are working in the valley, working in the state of J&K for upholding the rights of the people, they are well trained. They are very well trained in the aspect of human rights. I know of the courses which are run in the armed forces, even paramilitary, and even J&K police. I have been part and parcel of, many such courses. Thank you. Jai Hind.